June feels different. Not in a loud or dramatic way, but in something quieter, softer. After months of movement, pressure, intensity, and emotional recalibration, there's a sense this month of beginning to reconnect with life again. Not perfectly, not all at once, but gradually. Like something in the nervous system is beginning to unclench. Something in the heart beginning to open again. Gemini season brings movement, ideas, conversation, curiosity, possibility. But this year, June also carries a strong emotional undercurrent. A desire not just to move forward, but to feel connected while doing it. To move in ways that are sustainable, meaningful, alive. Welcome back to Libra Rising, where guidance from the stars meets reflections for the soul. And before we begin, I also wanted to share that Libra Rising has quietly begun expanding beyond the YouTube channel over the past few weeks. We now have a Libra Rising Facebook page, Instagram account, and a brand new Libra Rising webpage connected to my main website, with moon meditations, reflections for highly sensitive souls, and a growing collection of free downloads and journaling tools centered around reflection, self-awareness, and reconnecting with natural rhythms and cycles. So if you'd like to explore a little more deeply beyond these videos, you're always welcome there. As with last month, we'll be focusing on the larger themes shaping June, rather than every individual transit. Because June doesn't feel linear, it feels layered. Like a month moving between reflection, nourishment, awakening, emotional recalibration, and eventually, renewed self-expression. There's movement here, but not all movement needs to be rushed. There's growth here, but not all growth arrives through pressure. Let's step into the main astrological themes shaping June 2026. Theme 1. Emotional exhaustion, reflection, and awareness. Pisces Last Quarter Moon, June 8th. June begins with a last quarter moon in Pisces, and emotionally, this sets a reflective tone for the opening days of the month. Pisces energy softens boundaries. It heightens intuition, sensitivity, emotion, imagination, and awareness of what may be happening beneath the surface. And for many people, June may begin with the realization that they are more emotionally exhausted than they realized. Not necessarily in a dramatic way, more quietly. Like becoming aware of how long you've been holding tension in the body, how long you've been bracing, how long you've been surviving. This isn't a month that begins with force. It begins with awareness. Awareness of what no longer feels sustainable. Where are you depleted? Where are you overextended? Where have you disconnected from rest, softness, creativity, or meaning? This energy asks, what am I carrying that I may no longer need to hold so tightly? Theme 2. Nourishment, softness, and safe connection. Venus conjunct Jupiter in Cancer, June 9th. Almost immediately, the energy begins shifting. Venus and Jupiter come together in Cancer, bringing one of the most emotionally nourishing transits of the month. Cancer reminds us that healing is not only about endurance, not only about discipline, productivity, or constantly pushing ourselves forward. Sometimes healing also looks like rest, comfort, emotional safety, meaningful connection, nourishment, creativity, and allowing ourselves to receive support. This energy feels deeply restorative, especially for highly sensitive people who may have spent a long time operating in survival mode. There's a softness moving through June that asks us to reconnect not only with others, but with ourselves. What actually helps you feel safe? What helps your nervous system settle? What helps you feel present in your own life again? This isn't weak energy, it's replenishing energy. And honestly, I think many people may realize this month that they are craving depth, sincerity, and emotional honesty far more than constant stimulation or performance. This energy asks, what allows me to feel genuinely nourished, emotionally, physically, and spiritually? Theme 3. Breaking old scripts and redirecting the future. Uranus square the lunar nodes, June 12th. As the month unfolds, there's also a strong current of awakening and redirection moving beneath the surface. Uranus forms a tense square to the moon's nodes, and this energy can create sudden realizations, changing priorities, unexpected shifts, or the feeling that an old version of your life no longer fully fits. This may feel destabilizing at times, especially where something has become rigid, stagnant, or disconnected from authenticity. But this doesn't necessarily feel destructive. It feels revealing, like suddenly recognizing that an old script no longer makes sense. A role, a goal, a coping mechanism, a version of yourself built around survival instead of alignment. Not everything that once protected us is meant to guide the future. This energy may ask many people to loosen their grip on certainty and allow space for something more authentic to emerge. This energy asks, what patterns, identities, or expectations have I outgrown, even if part of me is afraid to admit it? Theme 4. Curiosity, possibility, and mental reconnection. New Moon in Gemini, June 14th through 15th. Midway through the month, we arrive at the new moon in Gemini. And after the emotional heaviness and internal reflection of the opening weeks, this energy feels lighter, more curious, more open. Gemini reminds us that life is not fixed. We are allowed to learn, to change, to experiment, to reconnect with possibility. This new moon brings fresh mental energy, supporting communication, journaling, creative projects, learning, conversation, social reconnection, and new perspectives. But Gemini can also become scattered when too many possibilities compete for attention. Not every idea needs to become action immediately. Not every opportunity needs to be followed. This energy feels less about rushing forward and more about allowing yourself to become mentally open again. Open to possibility, open to growth, open to a future that may not look exactly like the one you originally imagined. This energy asks, what becomes possible when I allow myself to think differently about my life? Theme 5. Healing, safety, worth, and embodiment. Chiron enters Taurus, June 19th. One of the deeper long-term shifts this month arrives as Chiron moves into Taurus. And collectively, this begins opening themes around safety, self-worth, nourishment, embodiment, survival, and our relationship with the body itself. For many people, this may bring awareness to old wounds connected to scarcity, insecurity, burnout, body shame, nervous system dysregulation, or the belief that worth must constantly be earned through productivity or performance. Taurus asks slower questions. What actually supports sustainable healing? What allows the body to feel safe? What rhythms are sustainable, not just temporarily effective? This feels especially important in a world that constantly pressures people to override their own needs, instincts, and limits. Healing here may not happen quickly, but it feels deeply rooted. This energy asks, what would it look like to build a life that genuinely supports my well-being, not just my survival? Theme 6. Solstice thresholds, reflection, and renewed expression. Summer Solstice, Cancer season, full moon in Capricorn, and Jupiter enters Leo, June 21st through 29th. As we move toward the summer solstice and Cancer season, the energy begins shifting once again. The solstice always marks a threshold, a turning point in the yearly cycle, a reminder that growth happens in seasons, and not all growth is visible immediately. There's a reflective quality here, a sense of looking back at how far you've come, while also beginning to look ahead. Then, toward the end of the month, the Capricorn full moon brings attention to the structures, responsibilities, goals, and long-term paths we are building our lives around. But interestingly, this doesn't feel like a full moon focused purely on achievement or productivity. It feels more reflective than that, more like asking, does the life I'm building actually allow my soul to come with me? At the same time, Jupiter moves into Leo, bringing a brighter, more expressive, more creative energy into the collective. After months of emotional processing and internal restructuring, this begins reopening the door to joy, creativity, confidence, visibility, play, and heart-centered self-expression. Not performative confidence, not forced positivity, but the quieter confidence that begins emerging when we start becoming more fully ourselves. This energy asks, what would it look like to participate more fully in my own life again? Taken together, June feels like a month of reconnection. It begins with awareness, recognizing exhaustion, emotional depletion, and what is no longer sustainable. It softens into nourishment, asking us to reconnect with safety, support, rest, and emotional honesty. It disrupts old patterns, revealing where old identities and survival strategies may no longer fit. It reopens curiosity and possibility, inviting new ways of thinking, learning, and imagining the future. It deepens into embodiment and healing, asking what truly supports sustainable well-being. And finally, it begins reopening the door to creativity, self-expression, and fuller participation in life itself. June doesn't ask for perfection. It doesn't ask you to have everything figured out, but it does ask for presence, for honesty, and for the willingness to reconnect with yourself as you continue becoming who you're meant to be. As we move into the tarot portion of this reading, we'll explore how these themes may be experienced on a more personal level, especially around emotional nourishment, discernment, embodiment, and the tension between possibility and clarity. Let's begin with the collective spread for June. This reading looks at how June may be moving through us on different levels, through the mind and ego, the emotional and spiritual body, the soul and intuitive space, and finally, through the body and instinct. As always, these cards aren't predictions about what will happen. They offer insight into how this month may want to be experienced, where there may be support, where there may be tension, and where something may be asking for awareness. And interestingly, this month's spread feels less focused on crisis and more focused on recalibration, on reconnecting, on learning the difference between what drains us and what actually restores us. There's also a noticeable contrast here between confusion and clarity, between depletion and nourishment, between emotional exhaustion and the possibility of beginning again. For the collective tarot this month, I pulled a 4-card elemental spread, looking at how June may move through us on different levels. Mind and ego, emotion and spirit, soul and intuition, and the body and instinct. And overall, this spread feels deeply aligned with the astrological themes of June. There's a sense here that many people are beginning to emerge from survival mode, but may still be learning how to trust softness, nourishment, and possibility again. Let's begin with the fire position, the realm of mind, identity, and ego. In the fire position, the realm of mind, identity, and ego, we have the Seven of Pentacles. And this feels very connected to the long-term nature of June's energy. This is a card of patience, assessment, reflection, looking honestly at what has been planted and what is slowly beginning to grow. But it's also a card that can bring frustration, especially when progress feels slower than expected. There may be moments this month where people question whether their efforts are paying off, whether healing is working, whether change is happening, whether the slow, steady work is worth continuing. But the Seven of Pentacles reminds us that not all growth is immediate. Some forms of healing happen quietly, beneath the surface, through consistency, through repetition, through choosing to continue even when results aren't instantly visible. This card asks, what am I building slowly, even if I can't fully see the outcome yet? In the air position, the realm of soul and intuitive awareness, we have the Seven of Cups. And this card feels very Gemini: possibility, imagination, curiosity, options, but also illusion. This energy can feel expansive, but also overwhelming. Too many possibilities, too many directions, too many ideas competing for attention. Not everything that appears this month will be aligned. Not every opportunity is meant to be pursued. Not every fantasy reflects reality. Not every emotional impulse points toward truth. And yet, this card isn't asking us to shut down imagination. It's asking for discernment. The soul may be exploring new possibilities this month, new visions, new desires, new futures. But it's important to stay connected to what feels grounded and real. This card asks, what possibilities genuinely nourish my soul, and which ones only distract me from myself? In the water position, emotion and the heart, we have the Empress reversed. And emotionally, this feels like the wound June is trying to bring awareness to. The Empress reversed often points toward depletion, overgiving, burnout, emotional exhaustion, disconnection from creativity, softness, nourishment, or the body's natural rhythms. For many highly sensitive people, this may feel very familiar. The tendency to keep giving long after the body or nervous system has begun asking for rest. The tendency to nurture others while neglecting ourselves. Or to stay productive while quietly becoming emotionally depleted beneath the surface. But this card doesn't feel condemning. It feels compassionate, like an invitation to notice where nourishment has been missing. And honestly, this pairs beautifully with the astrology of June, especially Venus and Jupiter in Cancer, because the month itself seems to be offering medicine for the exact wound this card reveals. This card asks, where have I been trying to survive instead of allowing myself to be nourished? In the Earth position, the body and instinct, we have the Ace of Cups. And honestly, this feels beautiful, especially following the Empress reversed. The Ace of Cups speaks to emotional renewal, softness returning, the nervous system beginning to open again. The possibility of feeling connected to emotion, intuition, creativity, or life itself after a long period of depletion or disconnection. This doesn't necessarily feel dramatic. It feels gentle, like the first signs of life returning after a long winter. For some people, this may show up emotionally. For others, physically. Moments of genuine joy, moments of peace, creative inspiration, emotional release, feeling more present in the body again. The Ace of Cups reminds us that healing does not always arrive through force. Sometimes it arrives through allowing ourselves to receive. This card asks, what happens when I stop trying to force healing and allow myself to experience it? Taken together, this spread speaks to a very specific experience. The mind is learning patience, trusting slow growth even when results aren't immediate. The soul is exploring possibility, but learning discernment along the way. The emotional body is recognizing exhaustion and becoming aware of where nourishment has been missing. And the body itself may be slowly reopening to connection, softness, creativity, and emotional renewal. This doesn't feel like a month of forcing transformation. It feels like a month of reconnecting with life again. Not perfectly, not all at once, but enough to remember that healing is not only about surviving. It's also about allowing ourselves to feel alive. Before moving into the one-card reading for the 12 signs of the Zodiac, just a quick reminder. These messages aren't predictions. They're points of awareness, reflections of how this energy may show up for you. You're welcome to listen for your sun, moon, or rising signs, or move through all 12 if that feels supportive. Let's begin. Sagittarius. This month may feel less focused on momentum and more focused on direction. The Chariot reversed can point to scattered energy, frustration, or feeling pulled in too many directions at once. This doesn't necessarily mean you're off path. It may simply mean that your energy needs realignment before forward movement becomes clear again. This month asks, where am I trying to force movement before I fully understand where I'm trying to go? Capricorn. The Eight of Pentacles reversed brings attention to burnout, perfectionism, or exhaustion connected to work and responsibility. Something about the way you've been pushing yourself may no longer feel sustainable. This isn't a failure of discipline. It may be a sign that your relationship to effort itself is asking to evolve. This month asks, what would change if I allowed myself to work with greater balance instead of constant pressure? Aquarius. The Lovers reversed may bring awareness to misalignment. This could show up in relationships, decisions, values, or the way you're relating to yourself. Something may feel slightly disconnected this month. Not wrong necessarily, but out of sync. Rather than rushing to fix it, begin by noticing it honestly. This month asks, what no longer feels fully aligned, even if part of me wants it to? Pisces. The Ten of Cups reversed may bring attention to emotional expectations that don't fully match reality. Something may appear ideal externally, while feeling more complicated internally. This doesn't mean happiness is unavailable. It may simply mean that emotional fulfillment requires honesty, not perfection. This month asks, what emotional truth needs acknowledgement beneath the surface of appearances. Aries, this month brings movement. The Knight of Wands is passionate, energized, motivated, and eager to move forward. There's momentum here, but also the risk of impulsivity. Not every spark needs immediate action. The challenge this month may be learning how to direct your energy without burning yourself out in the process. This month asks, how can I move with passion without losing grounding? Taurus, this card feels hopeful. The Five of Pentacles reversed often points toward recovery, support returning, or slowly emerging from a difficult period. Something that once felt isolating may begin softening this month. Help may be closer than you think. But this card also asks whether you're willing to receive it. This month asks, what support, healing, or connection am I finally ready to let in? Gemini. The Seven of Swords reversed points toward honesty, truth-telling, self-awareness, revealing something that can no longer stay hidden. This may involve communication with others, or simply greater honesty with yourself. Something about this month asks you to stop running from what you already know. And honestly, there's freedom in that. This month asks, what truth becomes possible when I stop avoiding myself? Cancer. The Five of Cups brings emotional processing. Grief, disappointment, or awareness of something that didn't unfold the way you hoped. But this card is rarely only about loss. It's also about perspective. Noticing what remains, noticing what still holds meaning, noticing what still wants to grow. This month asks, what am I still able to hold on to, even while grieving what's been lost? Leo. The King of Pentacles reversed may bring attention to your relationship with success, stability, control, or self-worth. This may be a month of reevaluating what security actually means to you. Not externally, internally. Something about old definitions of success may no longer feel fully satisfying. This month asks, what kind of stability actually supports the life I want to live? Virgo. Where others may feel overwhelmed by uncertainty this month, your energy may actually be moving toward clarity. The Seven of Cups reversed often reflects discernment, seeing through illusion, simplifying, narrowing focus. Something that once felt confusing may begin making more sense. This month asks, what becomes clearer when I stop overcomplicating the situation? Libra. This month feels deeply introspective for you. The Hermit invites reflection, solitude, wisdom, and stepping back from external noise long enough to hear your own inner guidance clearly. This isn't isolation. It's intentional withdrawal. A quieter kind of wisdom may be emerging this month, but only if you give yourself enough space to hear it. This month asks, what truth am I able to hear when everything becomes quiet? Scorpio. The Queen of Swords reversed may bring awareness to emotional defensiveness, harsh self-talk, or difficulty softening emotionally. There may be wisdom here, but also exhaustion. This card asks whether protection has slowly become disconnection. Not because you're cold, but because you've been trying to survive. This month asks, where might softness actually serve me more than self-protection? As always, take what resonates and leave what doesn't. These messages aren't fixed outcomes, they're reflections, ways of noticing what may be asking for your awareness as June unfolds. And overall, this month feels less focused on force and more focused on reconnection. Reconnection with truth. Reconnection with the body. Reconnection with emotional honesty. Reconnection with creativity, meaning, nourishment, and possibility. Not all at once, but gradually. And sometimes, gradual healing is still healing. And as we move through this month, you don't need to have everything figured out immediately. June carries movement, possibility, creativity, and expansion. But beneath all of that, there's also a quieter question moving through this reading. What actually supports us in staying connected to ourselves while life continues to grow and change? Because not all movement is aligned, not all excitement is sustainable, and not every opportunity will nourish us simply because it exists. Sometimes, the deeper work is learning how to recognize the difference. So before moving into the reflection from a highly sensitive soul, I want to offer a few reflection questions for June. Not as questions that need immediate answers, but as invitations to notice what may already be unfolding within you. The first, what genuinely nourishes me? And what only keeps me busy? The second, what possibilities feel aligned and which ones pull me away from myself? And the third, am I building a life I can emotionally stay connected to while living it? These questions aren't meant to create pressure, only awareness. Because sometimes the most meaningful shifts begin quietly, through noticing what helps us feel more alive, more grounded, and more fully present in our own lives. And honestly, this is something I've been thinking about a lot lately. Not just in theory, but in a very practical, day-to-day way. So before we move into the mantra and closing, I want to share a brief reflection, not from the cards, but from lived experience. From the perspective of a highly sensitive soul, learning how to expand, create, and move forward without losing connection to herself in the process. One thing I've been noticing lately is how different certain kinds of creativity feel in my body. Over the past few weeks, I've been spending a lot of time designing visual content, working on the new Libra Rising website, creating digital downloads, and building out projects connected to healing, reflection, and wellness. And honestly, it's been deeply nourishing. Not just productive, not just exciting, nourishing. There's something about creating resources that genuinely feel supportive, grounding, or meaningful that leaves me feeling more connected to myself, not less. It feels creative in a way that expands my life instead of pulling me away from it. And I think this month's reading has me paying closer attention to that difference. Because not every form of imagination affects me the same way anymore. I've been noticing that certain kinds of media, stories, or creative spaces leave me feeling emotionally disconnected, agitated, or dysregulated, especially when they feel rooted primarily in escapism, violence, or emotional fragmentation. And I want to be careful here, because I don't think imagination itself is the problem. Fantasy, storytelling, symbolism, and creativity can all be incredibly meaningful. They've certainly been meaningful for me. But I think what I'm beginning to recognize is that I no longer want to use imagination to escape reality. I want to use it to deepen my relationship with reality, to create beauty, meaning, connection, healing, to imagine what life could become, not to disappear from the life I'm actually living. And honestly, that realization feels important. Because right now, there are a lot of exciting things happening in my life. New projects, new ideas, new creative momentum, new opportunities to grow, connect, and build something meaningful. And the Gemini part of me wants to run toward all of it at once. The ideas, the inspiration, the possibilities. But this month's astrology and tarot feel like they're gently reminding me that expansion only stays sustainable if I remain connected to myself while it's happening. That excitement is not the same thing as alignment, and that building a meaningful life isn't only about momentum. It's also about embodiment, about staying grounded enough to notice what nourishes me, what depletes me, what feels aligned, and what quietly pulls me away from myself. Because I don't just want to build more. I want to build a life I can emotionally stay connected to while I'm living it. And I think that's the deeper lesson I'm carrying with me through June. Not to suppress inspiration, not to stop dreaming, not to avoid growth, but to move in a way that allows my mind, body, heart, and spirit to move together, instead of leaving parts of myself behind just because the mind wants to run ahead. And honestly, that kind of growth feels very different. Slower sometimes, but also more real. As we come to the close of this month's forecast, I'd like to leave you with a mantra. Carry it with you through June if it feels supportive and aligned. Not as something you need to force yourself to believe, but as a gentle point of return when life begins feeling noisy, scattered, or overwhelming. I release fear that I need to chase every possibility or force myself to become more. And I hold faith that what is truly aligned for me will nourish my spirit, support my growth, and unfold in its own time. Take a breath with that. Let it settle where it needs to. June doesn't ask you to rush your healing. It doesn't ask you to force clarity, perform confidence, or move faster than your spirit can follow. Instead, this month feels like an invitation to reconnect. To reconnect with your body, your creativity, your emotional honesty, your intuition, your sense of meaning, and maybe most importantly, your ability to stay present inside the life you are actively building. There may still be uncertainty this month, moments of overwhelm, moments where the future feels unclear, or where old patterns try to pull you back into survival mode. But there's also something else here. Softness, renewal, possibility. A quieter kind of healing that doesn't arrive through force, but through gradual reconnection with yourself. And if you find yourself moving more slowly than expected, that doesn't necessarily mean you're falling behind. Sometimes slower movement is what allows deeper roots to form. Sometimes the nervous system needs safety before the soul can fully expand. And sometimes the most meaningful transformation begins not with becoming someone new, but with finally allowing yourself to fully inhabit who you already are. If this reading resonated with you, feel free to share which message, card, or reflection stood out most in the comments. I always appreciate hearing how these energies are landing for you. And before we close, as always, may you move through this month with gentleness toward yourself. May you learn to recognize the difference between what truly nourishes you and what only keeps you distracted or depleted. May you allow yourself to grow slowly enough that your body, heart, and spirit can grow together. And may you continue building a life that feels not only meaningful, but deeply alive. Thank you for being here. Thank you for sharing this space with me. And thank you for continuing to walk this path of healing, reflection, and becoming. I'll see you in July.